John Solomon, thanks so much for joining us on System Update.
Yeah, great to be with you. Great to join you.
You have covered Russiagate extensively, and we've just gotten a series of really important document releases declassified by the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard. For people who are not following the story closely, as closely as you and I have, what do you think is most important to know, and what revelations stand out to you?
Well, what we now know is that both our intelligence and our law enforcement communities were hijacked by political operatives in the 2016 election to take the normal process of how you would evaluate election interference, which goes on, by the way, in every election with multiple countries, and try to turn it into a political weapon and to create the perception in the public that Donald Trump conspired with Vladimir Putin to defeat Hillary Clinton. Now, that concept starts with Hillary Clinton herself. The intelligence community intercepts a conversation indicating that Hillary personally approved a plan in mid-July to hang a fake Russian shingle on Donald Trump's campaign house, basically play a dirty trick and make it look like Vladimir and Donald were together on the election. The President of the United States at the time, Barack Obama, is personally warned about this on or about July 25th by John Brennan. Then 5 days later, the president does not stop the FBI when the FBI decides to open up on that allegation. And then between July and November, there's a concerted effort to get an FBI investigation going, to get a FISA warrant going, to then leak the information to try to get voters to believe this false story that was an illusion of the Clinton campaign. Donald Trump still wins the election, not with Vladimir Putin's help, but by the help of the American people. And then in December, with Hillary Clinton chastened by her loss, the intelligence community, working with John Brennan, tries to create a plausible explanation that Hillary only lost because Vladimir Putin had hijacked the election for Donald Trump. And they do this over the objections of career CIA officials. They do this in violation of the intelligence community's directive rules, and they do it by relying on a document that by December of 2016, the Steele dossier, we all know it now, had been fully discredited, and yet it is used to drive a conclusion that Vladimir Putin was trying specifically to help Donald Trump win. And it's really dramatic how it happens. On December 8th of 2016, after the election, the intelligence committee was going to come into Barack Obama and say, hey, we assess that Russia, like it always did, gotten meddled in the election a little bit, but it did not have a favored candidate. In fact, it so much didn't have a favored candidate that it dropped out of its active measures, its dirty tricks, its intelligence in October, the very month if you were going to try to influence the election, you would most be active, right? If you wanted Hillary or Donald Trump to win, October's the month when people are making up their minds. That's when you would do your most active things. Putin pulls out of the election in October. On December 8th, they were going to tell Barack Obama that. That briefing got canceled. The next day, Barack Obama orders a new review led only by John Brennan, James Comey, and the NSA director. And within a few short weeks, they flip-flop the conclusions and say, oh, we've now decided magically that Vladimir Putin was specifically trying to help Donald Trump. And the only way they can get there, by today's explosive revelations that Tulsi Gabbard gave us, is they have to use the Steele dossier, which by that time has been discredited over and over again. Bruce Orr told them in August it was not to be relied on. The CIA warned the FBI in September that Steele's network of sources had been infiltrated by Russia intelligence. He needed to be reevaluated. The FBI fires Christopher Steele after catching him leak the existence of the investigation and his dossier in November. And by December, the FBI has completed a spreadsheet of every sentence of the Steele dossier and concluded they can't corroborate it or they've debunked every sentence. And despite all that, they decide to use it over the rules of the intelligence community to plant this dirty secret or to plant this lie on the American people that Vladimir Putin helped Donald Trump win the election.
You know, I'm personally skeptical that there even was any kind of serious Russian meddling operation at all. There were some Facebook ads. We know about that and some dumb memes. But in terms of the email hacking, I'm even more skeptical now after seeing the newly declassified intelligence. But before I get into that with you, I want to go back to July because it's really important what you discussed initially. So in July, we learned very, very late, years later, that the Obama administration got a warning that Russia was aware of a plot to falsely tie Trump to Russia. And despite that, as you explained, the Obama administration still let the FBI go ahead with its collusion investigation. And what we also learned way later was that weeks before the FBI opened up its fake collusion investigation into Trump and Russia, Victoria Nuland, who was then a senior State Department official, authorized the FBI to go and collect this Steele dossier, which is the Clinton campaign-funded collection of conspiracy theories. But yet the FBI wants us to believe that had nothing to do with their decision to open up Crossfire Hurricane, the Trump-Russia collusion probe. But on the issue of this warning by Brennan, of the so-called Clinton plan intelligence.
Let me stop, Aaron, just for 1 second, because you just said something pretty profound. It's really important to realize that after they're warned that Hillary Clinton's going to plant a dirty trick, the FBI's FISA warrant relies on the direct evidence of that dirty trick, right? The Steele dossier was a big part of the dirty trick that the Clinton campaign was planting, along with the fake Alpha Bank story. The FBI takes the very fruit of what they know to be a dirty trick because they were warned, and they use it to predicate the investigation. That's what makes it more than just bumbling and stumbling. That's why a lot of people like Kash Patel, who's now opened a conspiracy case, believe it was criminal in nature.
Absolutely. Okay, speaking of criminal, in September, early September, after, weeks after John Brennan has, shared this information that Russia is aware of a Clinton plot to falsely tie Trump to Russia.
Yep.
In early September, all of a sudden, John Brennan sends a criminal referral or an investigative referral to the FBI, to James Comey, to Peter Strzok, warning them about this Clinton plan intelligence, this Clinton plot to falsely tie Trump to Russia. And yet nothing happens. And in fact, years later, James Comey is asked about this in Congress, and he claims it doesn't ring any bells.
Mr. Comey, as you mentioned it earlier, Mr. Ratcliffe says on 7 September 2016, U.S. intelligence officials forwarded an investigative referral to FBI Director James Comey regarding U.S. presidential candidate Hillary Clinton's approval of a plan concerning Donald Trump and Russian hackers as a means of distracting the public from her use of a private mail server, end quote. Did you open an investigation?
I don't know what that refers to. As I said earlier, that does not ring any bells with me when I read that.
You did not receive any investigative referral of this nature?
I don't remember it. I don't remember receiving anything that's described in that letter.
Okay. So what do you think is going on here? So Brennan receives this intelligence. He warns Obama about it. Then in September, why does he all of a sudden send a criminal referral or a referral to the FBI? And do you buy James Comey's claim that it doesn't ring any bells? He doesn't remember receiving that referral.
On multiple instances over the last 4 or 5 years, including this week when Barack Obama said, I don't know how they can say I was part of a conspiracy, I kept thinking back to the figure on the old Hogan Heroes TV show, Sergeant Schultz, who always used to say, I know nothing, even though he knew everything that was going on in the camp. It's important to realize that these statements are not true based on the emails, the text messages, and other evidence we have. Everybody was read into these different developments as they were happening. There's no chance that James Comey can't remember that he was warned that Hillary Clinton was going to hang a dirty shingle on Donald Trump's house called Russia collusion. You just would remember something that important. If it didn't get to him, it would be one of the greatest failures of the FBI. You'd tell your director things of this importance. Everybody claims a lack of knowledge, even though they're present for the moments when these happen. Let's take Barack Obama's denial this week, because it can be disassembled so quickly. Barack Obama's basically like, this is a political weapon. I didn't do anything. The idea, I don't even know what they're talking about. He's in the meeting with Brennan in July when he's told Hillary Clinton's going to do this. In December, he orders the re-review after the intelligence community comes to a conclusion that's different. And then in January, just 15 days before Donald Trump's going to take office, he presides over the meeting in the White House with Joe Biden, where they're trying to figure out how they can keep the investigation of Mike Flynn open, the incoming national security advisor. That is so significant because one day before, on January 4th, the FBI had decided that Mike Flynn had not engaged in a single act of criminality and that he should be cleared, and the investigation against him that was launched during the election should be shut down. And there is Barack Obama, Joe Biden, and the FBI gang trying to figure out how can we keep this going. And when they leave that meeting, there's an FBI agent so disturbed by what happened in that meeting, what he witnessed, he writes down, is our mission here to get the truth for the American people, or are we just trying to trip up Mike Flynn to lie so we can charge him with something? That's what a senior FBI official witnessed the President of the United States engaging in. Barack Obama, I can refresh your recollections pretty quickly. Stop lying to the American people. Own up to what you did.
And then you have John Brennan, who testified under oath that the Steele dossier played no part in the formation of that intelligence community assessment that Barack Obama ordered in December 2016 and that was released to the public in January 2017. This is what John Brennan said to Congress.
Steele dossier as part of any court filings, applications, petitions, pleadings?
I have no awareness.
Did the CIA rely on it?
No.
Why not?
Because we didn't. It wasn't part of the corpus of intelligence information that we had. It was not in any way used as a basis for the intelligence community assessment that was done. It was not.
Okay, so that's John Brennan, John Solomon, telling Congress that the Steele dossier was in no way used for the intelligence community assessment that accused Russia of a sweeping operation to try to elect Trump. Yeah. Now we know that that's false. We've seen the new report by HIPSI, the House Intelligence Committee, that's just been declassified by Tulsi Gabbard, which says that the Steele dossier was explicitly referenced in the body of the ICA, and that John Brennan himself personally argued in favor of including it over the objections of some senior CIA analysts.
Yeah. And by the way, Brennan gives very similar testimony to what you show again in 2023, which is in the statute of limitations right now. There's 4 bullets upon which the key conclusions of the ICA that was produced in December 2016 rest on. One of those bullets, which is the bullet that helps back up the argument that Donald Trump was aided by Putin. Putin's goal was to help Donald Trump win. That bullet refers to Annex 1, which is the annex that we now know to be the Steele dossier. So it was used as an analytical product to come to the most contentious of the analytical conclusions, which is that contrary to what the government had been saying for months, now we're going to say Putin was trying to help Donald Trump. And that rests on the Steele dossier, which by December, as we've said, was completely debunked by the time. It was not a reliable intelligence product. It contradicts everything you just heard in that clip from John Brennan.
All right. So on the issue of Russian hacking, Russian email hacking, which was the core Russiagate allegation, it's actually what triggered Russiagate when CrowdStrike, a firm working for Hillary Clinton's campaign, came out in June 2016 and accused Russia of hacking the DNC. We've learned since then that the FBI relied on CrowdStrike's forensics, even though CrowdStrike redacted its own reports and refused to let the FBI examine the DNC servers for itself. Just as the FBI relied on the Steele dossier, I've always flagged this as a major investigative lapse because you're relying on Trump's political opponent for such a critical component of this investigation. And now we've gotten more information that I think bolsters skepticism of this Russian hacking allegation. So even if Russia did hack into the DNC servers, which, is quite plausible, and it seems as if the intelligence community had a basis to believe that, the actual evidence that Russia took something from the server and gave it to WikiLeaks remains very thin. And now you have, newly released by Tulsi Gabbard, a September 2016 intelligence community assessment that says the FBI and the NSA had low confidence that Russia actually hacked the emails and gave them to actors, including WikiLeaks, for publication. We only got that now, this low confidence. Somehow, the FBI and the NSA go from expressing low confidence to going along with the John Brennan-led judgment that actually it was Russia that hacked and leaked the DNC. And what happens? Well, the timeline is, after the election, as you mentioned, Barack Obama orders a brand new assessment. And at a December 9th meeting, they decide we're going to make an attribution to Russia. Now, missing from that meeting are Jim Comey and Mike Rogers, the respective heads of the FBI and the NSA, which had at that point still been dissenting on this Russian email hacking claim. What I'm speculating here is that it was at that point that they were told to fall in line. And James Comey, having been blamed for Hillary Clinton losing because of his handling of the Clinton email server investigation, he goes along with it. That's what I'm speculating here. What do you think? And what do you make of this very assessment that there was low confidence?
You know as well as anyone how elaborate this dirty trick was. I believe that probably will be what the evidence shows when we're done. this is the time now where we have the contemporaneous documents, but we haven't compelled people to go before a grand jury and find out the truth on this. And I think the next moment, whether we'll know whether this is going to be a serious move towards accountability or just another great set of Fox News revelations that go away in a few months, is whether Pam Bondi follows the normal procedures for the Justice Department. As you laid out, and we've laid out for the last 20 minutes, this is a conspiracy case now. And by the way, Kash Patel opened a predicated conspiracy case in April, looking at the events of 2016 through 2024 as one ongoing conspiracy. Clear Hillary Clinton, hang the Russian shingle on Donald Trump. Hunter Biden's got a Ukraine problem, start Ukraine impeachment. Joe Biden's got a classified documents problem, let's raid Donald Trump's house and find a classified documents problem for him. They're looking at that as one continuous conspiracy, which, by the way, winds back the statutes. You can now start taking events of 2016 and make them part of the conspiracy. If, in any other case, a conspiracy case is open, the usual step that the FBI and the Justice Department take is they create a federal strike force. This is if this was a drug kingpin for the cartels or a godfather for the mafia, the next step is, all right, the FBI predicated a case, you now create a federal strike task force, and you take your best prosecutors and your agents, you make them one team, and they look at every overt act and try to tell you whether this rises to the level of a criminal conspiracy. If Pam Bondi does that in the next few days or few weeks, then you know something serious is going on. If she doesn't, then all we have is a lot more detail, but still a very short lack of accountability for the people who are involved in this.
One more question on the email hacking. You reported years ago that there were talks with Julian Assange between Assange and the FBI and Trump administration, where Assange was talking about providing some technical evidence that would rule out the role of state actors, including Russia, in the hack and leak. It was James Comey, I believe, that killed those talks.
That's right. According to, I think it was Adam Waldman, the lawyer for Julian Assange at the time. That's where we learned that information. That's what happened. And we have text messages that was going on. You can see in real time. I think Mark Warner and Comey were the ones that seemed to put the kibosh on it. That needs to be looked back now in light of these other events, because it could be another overt act, another act of cover-up to try to keep the lid on the dirty trick that started with Hillary Clinton. That's where a strike force and a grand jury could be potentially very helpful, because there are still missing pieces of this puzzle. For instance, why didn't the FBI grab the servers? In any other investigation, you wouldn't rely on someone's private vendor and say, trust us. By the way, a private vendor who worked for a client that had a vested interest in the case, Hillary Clinton's in the Democratic National Committee, that's who they're working for at the time. You would grab the servers yourself.
As they're framing Trump as a Russian agent.
Just like when they got the 5 thumb drives with all of Hillary Clinton's exfiltration, you would normally look at that, but they didn't. All of the basic requirements of the FBI DIAG, all of the basic requirements of the U.S. Attorney's Manual, all of the basic requirements of the intelligence community's directive, which is the Bible for how you do assessments, all of them get abandoned during this hour, and during this window. All of them take all of their training and they cast it aside in order to come up with this ruse. The answer to why they did that will probably determine whether this is criminal in nature or not.
Yeah, and what did Comey say? When he was asked about this by Congress, he said, well, CrowdStrike, which was working for the Clinton campaign, was a highly respected firm, so nothing to see here. I suppose he could have said the same thing about Christopher Steele, a highly respected agent who the FBI was also relying on. So the fact that you have the FBI relying on a Clinton campaign contractor for not just one, but 2 of Russiagate's core allegations, collusion and email hacking, the fact that we're only still getting transparency about this now, 8 years later, really is mind-boggling. So you've laid out the fact that, we're looking at a conspiracy case here. What are you expecting to happen in the coming months? More document releases? Do you think that, and who do you think they're looking at when it comes to building a criminal case?
Well, listen, you got to have the apparatus to do it. It's one thing for the FBI to open the case and gather the evidence that's currently available, but for the evidence that hasn't been produced and needs to be forcibly produced, you need grand jury power. You need grand jury subpoenas. If this was, conspiracies are typically applied to drug cartels and mob cases and things like that. If this is treated like every other case, the next step is to create a strike force and then give that strike force the ability to use a grand jury. Maybe you name a special counsel because Donald Trump is the alleged victim for some of this, so you create some independence. Whether they do that or not, if they don't create the strike force, they're not following the normal procedures that a Justice Department would use for a conspiracy case like this. So we have to look. The ball is in Pam Bondi's court. The question is she going to shoot the three-point shot or not? I don't know the answer to that yet, but I will tell you the way the Justice Department normally would work, the strike force would be the very next part of the process that you would see unfold in the next week or two.
Thanks for watching this clip from System Update, our live show that airs every Monday through Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern, exclusively on Rumble. You can catch the full nightly shows live or view the backlog of episodes for free on our Rumble page. You can also find full episodes the morning after they air across all major podcasting platforms, including Spotify and Apple. All the information you need is linked below. We hope to see you there.